And my scripture today is taken from Exodus chapter 32, verses 7 through 11. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go down, get away from here, for your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly from the way which I commanded them. They have made for themselves a molten calf and have worshipped it and have sacrificed to it and said, 'This is your God, O Israel, who has brought you out of the land of Egypt.' And the Lord said to Moses, 'I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore, let me alone, that my wrath may be kindled against them, and that I may destroy them, and I will make you a great nation.' But Moses prayed before the Lord his God and said, 'Not so, O Lord. Let not thy wrath kindle against thy people, whom thou hast brought forth out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand.'" And thus ends the reading of our scripture. A little over a week ago, we celebrated Independence Day. This country's independence as a free and great nation, the home of the free and the home of the brave, a melting pot, people who immigrated from other countries to escape oppressiveness and tyranny, a nation which afforded and welcomed all to its shores with a fresh start. This new land presented great opportunities and options to build a better life. On our spiritual journey, every day is Independence Day, and we have opportunities and options to build a better life. But perhaps we need milestones to remind us that we are free in consciousness. We are free to create the most optimal life. If we can imagine it, we can be it. No limitations, no tyranny. We have options available to us every day to escape the oppressiveness of our mind. And all we need to do is make choices that will bear the fruit of happiness and joy. Infinite opportunities and infinite possibilities lay in front of us. Our inner independence is just waiting for us to claim it. In today's scripture, the Israelites lived under the oppressive rule of the Pharaoh. And for those of you who joined us during my last sermon, I spoke about how the Pharaoh did everything within his power to encage the people of Egypt in bondage in a life of slavery and oppressiveness. Try as he may, God had another plan. The Pharaoh could not stop their progression and enslave them. It was ordained by God that the people be free. And Moses was chosen to lead them out of Egypt and through the desert to the land of milk and honey, to the promised land. Now, as we contemplate what this means, we want to consider and look at it through the lens of how it pertains to our spiritual growth. The Israelites represent our illumined thoughts, which have not been fully developed yet. They are in the development stage. And in order to develop them, they require spiritual discipline. At the infancy stage, we're not quite fully developed or awake. And we are still living in the sense and material world. This is the beginning of our journey from sense consciousness to awakened spiritual consciousness. It is our journey from Egypt to the promised land. Our spiritual journey began in Egypt. And Egypt represents that state of darkness or ignorance. And I'm not saying, it's not that darkness is something that's bad. Darkness just lacks the light. That's all the darkness is. It lacks the understanding. And here we are still connected to the sense or material consciousness. We have yet to gain the spiritual knowledge. And we are at the dawn of our spiritual quest. When our illumined thoughts are living in Egypt, they are still in that state of bondage to the sense self. And sometimes this could be our old ways of thinking, perhaps an idea of what we think we should do or think we should be, that perhaps we don't think we deserve to live in happiness, or that we're not good enough, or what the world wants us to be. We are living in that physical world mind. In Egypt, we're living in the material sense consciousness. And in this place, we create our own prison walls in our mind, sometimes holding ourselves hostage to what no longer serves us. But despite this, something deep, deep, deep within us is driving us. It's driving us seeking that truth, seeking to be free of the shackles. Our inner voice, the God within us, is telling us there is more and urging us to progress, to learn truth, because it is the truth which will set us free. The Israelites, our illumined consciousness, desire to grow, desire to be free. It is that inner voice urging us to progress. Our soul is seeking knowledge and greater understanding, so we may bring forth what is within us. So we may bring forth the illumination of the light of God that dwells within. Moses was ordained to lead the Israelites out of Egypt into the promised land. Metaphysically, Moses means drawing out or extracting, meaning drawing out what is already within us. It is the phase where we are drawing out the light of God within us so we may progress spiritually. Our growth comes from within. It is not something that comes from the outside world. Moses dared to stand up to the Pharaoh and lead them out of Egypt for their freedom. He led them out of Egypt physically, but, and this is a big but, some of them remained in Egypt in their consciousness. You see, they had to lead themselves out of this state of bondage. Each of us has to stand up to our Pharaoh or what is holding us hostage. When the Israelites first left Egypt, there was great jubilation. They were led by Moses through the wilderness into the desert. And the wilderness is our undisciplined and uncultivated thoughts. Our spiritual growth entails cultivating discipline over these untamed thoughts. And Moses led them into the desert. And what is the desert? It is a space that is void of obstructions. It's barren, but it's also a blank slate. In the desert, we can disconnect from the obstructions of the material world, from our work, our families, our obligations. And the desert helps create conditions for the solitude of our meditation, to immerse ourselves in this blank slate where our mind is quiet and we are better able to connect to God. And here is where we begin to cultivate the discipline over our thoughts, and our spiritual growth begins to unfold. Our seeking soul desires to be fully awake. But for some of us, it's a process. Moses went high into the mountain being that higher state of consciousness. And it is in this higher state where we are most connected to, or should I say, aware of, our connection to God. And it is here where we attain to be and where we want to remain and return to. And while Moses was high up in the mountain, back at camp, the Israelites became antsy while he was gone, wondering when he would return and feeling as though they left him out in the desert alone. Their faith began to wane, and some of them turned to worshiping false gods and idols. Our scripture says they have made for themselves a molten calf and have worshiped it. and sacrificed to it and said, "This is your God." They began to make material things greater than spiritual, slipping back into the ignorance of sense consciousness. God was not pleased. And God told Moses, "Go down, get away from here. For your people whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves." And God told Moses, "Now therefore, let me alone, that my wrath may be kindled against them, and that I may destroy them." But Moses prayed to God, and Moses said, "Let not thy wrath kindle against thy people, whom thou hast brought forth out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand." These extraordinary conditions had been created to free the Israelites from years of bondage, and they started to slide backwards. Some were still enslaved in the material world. It would be ideal to think that our growth is a straight line, but for some of us, it's not. Our path may be filled with curves, bumps, detours, lessons, and sometimes we may get lost and find ourselves returning to where we first started, feeling disconnected from the source. And when this happens, we want to go back to the desert. We want to go to the desert to quiet our thoughts, to meditate, to turn to God, to reconnect with the source. We want to follow Moses to the top of the mountain, to our higher state of consciousness. When Moses returned back to camp, he wasn't pleased. And the Israelites had a choice. Were they going to go back to their old way of thinking, or were they going to follow him? We have the same choice. Are we going to revert back to our old way of thinking and be in bondage to our sense consciousness? Or are we going to cultivate our illumined consciousness and reach the top of that mountain? The Moses within us is committed to bringing forth our illumined consciousness, even when we get off track. It's committed to getting us back on track, even when we slip back into the ways of sense consciousness and the material world takes a hold of us. But keep in mind, we have free will, and it is our choice as to which path we will follow. We don't want to take our independence for granted and slip back into the old ways of thinking, both as a country and on our quest for inner independence. In both instances, we have to be committed to retaining our growth and progressing as a nation and progressing on a personal level. And this may mean having grace for ourselves and having grace for others, lifting each other up, bonding together to draw out the illumined consciousness of each and every person. We celebrate our independence annually as a country, but it is important that we focus on retaining our independence every day. Just like the Israelites, it's easy to slide back in to the old ways of thinking, to the thoughts that lack understanding and truth, being enslaved to the material world. We have the power. We have the power to remove the shackles of the Pharaoh and his tyranny and oppressiveness. And as we listen to the inner voice of God within us, it will lead us out of Egypt. But we have to be committed and we need to stay the course until we reach the top of the mountain. And when we do, we shall live in the land of milk and honey, the promised land. Many blessings to each of you as you embrace your inner independence and follow your Moses to the promised land so that you too may enjoy the land of milk and honey. Namaste.